Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. David Glassner, Superintendent of Shaker Heights City School District. I'm here to provide my regular update related to our plans for the 2020-2021 school year. As always, I'm just going to start with some brief housekeeping announcements. I provide these updates regularly on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. However, this week, because of a scheduling conflict, we will not have a Thursday update at 3 p.m. Instead, we will be having an update on Friday at 3 p.m. So I apologize for any inconvenience. We do also try to, we provide information, and we also try to answer questions that are submitted in advance. You are welcome to submit those questions on our website at www.shaker.org. You are also welcome to enter questions into the Zoom chat panel or the Facebook chat panel. While we can't answer those questions in real time, we do try to get to them at a later date. With that, I'm just going to share my screen so I can share some of the topics that we'll be talking about today. Today, I'll review very briefly the guiding principles that continue to drive our decision-making. I will then be talking about the start of the 2021 school year, talk a little more about a remote start and why we're considering that, what that would mean, the implications of a remote start for our students and schedule, and also then some planning details that we're working on and responding to some questions that we've gotten up until now. So as you all know, student and staff health and safety is our primary concern and priority as we plan for the school year. That remains the case, particularly as we see COVID-19 cases continue to rise in this area. And our decisions are informed and guided by the district's strategic plan, which rests on two pillars of educational equity and the International Baccalaureate Framework. I know I've reviewed this many times up until now, so I just reviewed it very briefly for everyone today. This evening, we are having a board meeting, a special board meeting at 5 o'clock this evening. I invite everyone to attend. And one of the reasons for the board meeting is that we are going to be discussing with the board tonight a plan for the district to start remotely for a semester. This is something that we are in the process of considering, and we'll be discussing details about this plan with the board this evening. Along with this plan, we are proposing that we push back the start of school for students an additional week to start on August 31st rather than on August 24th, which is what we had proposed at the last board meeting. This provides some additional time for staff planning to ensure that we're fully prepared for the 2021 school year. I expect that in addition to the board meeting this evening, we will be able to provide additional details about this plan at the update this upcoming Friday, July 31st. But again, just to be clear, I will be discussing with the board, along with other members of our leadership team, a plan for the district to start remotely and to be in a remote learning environment for a semester. There are many reasons why we think it's necessary to start in a remote setting, many of which I'm sure you are familiar with, but I just want to review them to make sure that they're clear and that we're all on the same page. First of all, we have not, unfortunately, yet controlled the community spread of the coronavirus in Cuyahoga County, really in all of Ohio, but especially in Cuyahoga County and in Shaker Heights. And I'm sure as many of you have, I've read lots of research and articles and spoken with many experts about reopening schools for students. And there is broad consensus that in order for students to return to school, for students and staff to return to school in person, it really requires a controlled community spread of the virus, that we have really limited the spread of the virus across our community. And unfortunately, we have not yet done so. We also believe our in-person hybrid models are strong, but we also believe that having a remote learning environment for an extended period of time will allow us to provide the continuity and the consistency that we know our students need and thrive on, and really which allow for us to provide an excellent education and instruction and curriculum for all of our students. Planning for an extended period of time, starting in a remote setting and planning it for an extended period of time, like a semester, allows us to provide and focus on ensuring robust and strong remote instruction. We know that there were some criticisms of remote instruction in the spring, and we have spent the past few months and will continue to spend the time leading up to the start of the school year, continuing to revise and strengthen remote learning. This will include ensuring that students are engaged in face-to-face instruction with their teachers. We also will ensure that the curriculum and the instructional strategies we use align with a virtual or remote learning environment. We will include independent and small group instruction just like we would in the classroom, and provide opportunities for students to have conferences with teachers as needed, just like we do when we're in a brick and mortar setting. The expectation is that our faculty and our staff will be working full-time to meet our student needs. And we know that we'll be better able to do this if we're able to focus on providing that education and instruction and support in a remote learning environment for an extended period of time. Planning for a remote setting for a semester would also help us to address the capacity to provide childcare and remote learning supervision. We know that this has been a major area of concern for our families, one that we agree with. We know that this is a concern. I had a phone call earlier, a meeting earlier today with my colleagues at the rec department, the Shaker Heights rec department. Very informative meeting, very supportive meeting. And our rec department is already in the thick of developing plans to provide both childcare, like before care and after care that we're used to in our schools, as well as remote learning centers for students who need supervision during the school day while they are engaged in learning. Being in a virtual setting will allow the rec department to use school spaces to provide that kind of supervision and childcare. And I'd really like to thank and commend our rec department for all of the work that they are doing to plan for this. We will be working in partnership with them to ensure that we are meeting student and family needs. But we believe that now that planning for a remote start for an extended period of time, like a semester, will allow us to meet childcare and remote learning supervision needs better than we otherwise would have. I want to answer some questions proactively because I know these have come up a few times over the past few days and weeks. So if we begin remotely, and if that remote period is extended for a semester, first of all, that would mean that there would be no Shaker Virtual Academy this semester. Since all students would be remote for a semester, there would not be a need at this time for a Shaker Virtual Academy. Obviously, if we are able to go in person later in the school year and there is still a need for some kind of all virtual learning environment, we're happy to restart the Shaker Virtual Academy. I know there have been questions also about the deadline for enrollment in the Shaker Virtual Academy, since currently the deadline is scheduled for this Friday, July 31st. If necessary, we will extend the deadline for enrollment in the Shaker Virtual Academy. We know that many families really are planning or developing their decisions and making plans based on what the district decides for the start of school. We appreciate that. So we will extend the deadline for enrollment in the Shaker Virtual Academy if it is necessary to do so. But again, as I said, if we are remote for a semester, there will not be a need for a Shaker Virtual Academy. Every student or family who enrolled in the Shaker Virtual family up until now would simply be re-enrolled back in their home school or grade level. As I mentioned, we are exploring childcare and remote learning supervision options along with our partners, particularly at the rec department. And again, thank you to the City and the Rec Department for their collaboration in this area. Our goal would be to provide remote learning supervision for students and families in need. I also want to mention that we've been in touch with our parent-teacher organization, leaders of our PTO, and I know that the PTO is also eager to assist in this area, and we really appreciate your support and your efforts to help provide childcare options and resources for families in need. We are also in the process of discussing athletics and what this means. I participated in a Lake Erie League meeting yesterday with other superintendents, athletic directors, and principals. The landscape for athletics is a little different. The Ohio High School Athletic Association continues to push for, or is planning for, the start of the fall sports season this Saturday, August 1st. However, inter-district competition has not yet been approved at the state level, and we expect that the governor, or we're hopeful that the governor's office may make some announcement or provide additional guidance related to sports over the next few days. With that in mind, we have been talking with our partners at the Lake Erie League and across Northeast Ohio to discuss the possibility of delaying the start of the fall sports season for a week, for a couple of weeks, or for a longer period of time. Currently, as many of you know, our students are engaged in no contact or low contact drills and athletic skills training. We are hopeful to continue to be able to provide that even if the fall sports season does not start as scheduled. But that is something that we're still working on. In the meantime, the athletes who have been participating in training practices should continue to do so. And thank you to our coaches and other families for supporting our athletic programming up until now. We are also continuing to refine protocols and plans for eventual in-person instruction. We are hopeful that we'll get to in-person instruction as soon as possible. We realize that there are still protocols and procedures that we will need to have in place for when that does happen. And so we will continue to refine our structures to make sure that we are extremely well prepared for in-person learning when we're able to provide it. We'll be talking about many of these details with the board this evening. I just wanted to share with our community some of the things that we'll be talking about at the board meeting this evening. So our teams are currently working on developing building level and student schedules for what a remote learning environment for a semester will look like. So, for example, at the building level, we know our in-person hybrid model had specific start and end times for each school. If we are in a remote setting for a semester, we may be able to change or modify some of those start and end times for our buildings because we're not as closely tied to transportation needs. So we are working on fleshing out what those building level schedules might look like. We also know that families are very interested in knowing exactly what a student schedule will look like in a remote setting for a semester. We're working on putting those together at the secondary level and at the primary level. I do want to say that screen time has come up as a concern a number of times, and this relates to student engagement. We expect that in a remote learning environment, our students will be engaged and learning throughout the school day. This does not mean that students will be on a Zoom meeting for 6 hours and just staring at somebody talking for 6 hours over the course of the day. It does mean that to deliver instruction and content, we will need to use a computer or other device to make sure that students can engage in the learning. So, for example, students may have an activity that they then work on independently or in small groups while the link remains live so that they can ask questions. And then after a certain period of time, they come back into as a full class, reconvene to go through that activity, just like you would in a normal school setting. We recognize that screen time is an issue. We also recognize that it's important that students are able to engage in learning and that computer devices is going to be the primary mechanism of doing that. As part of our planning, we are already working on ensuring the readiness of student and teacher devices and connectivity. As I'm sure everybody here knows, in the spring, we were able to very quickly distribute devices to students and hotspots to students and families as needed. We know that this year there will be new incoming kindergartners, new students, other students who may need devices. We want to make sure that our teacher devices are ready to go, that students and families who need connectivity are getting the connectivity support they need. So that is also something that we're planning for. We're also already in the process of thinking about meal distribution and how that might look different than it has in the past, how we can continue to strengthen and reach as many families as possible with meal distribution. We also know that in a remote learning environment, it is going to be even more important than usual to ensure that there are strong relationships among students and between students and teachers. We're already thinking about what we can do to ensure that there are relationships from the beginning of the year with our students and teachers to make sure that students are successful. We've learned a lot about the virus over the past few months, and we hope that we're able to use that knowledge to put in place opportunities for students and teachers to connect with each other so that we have strong relationships established at the beginning of this year. Finally, as we discuss our planning, we're also reviewing our staffing needs, because in a virtual or remote learning environment for a semester, some of our needs may look different. And so that's something that we're also beginning to plan for a remote learning environment for an extended period of time. I'm now going to take an opportunity to answer some specific questions that we received, and I'm going to answer these questions from the perspective of a remote learning environment for up to a semester. So if school starts fully remotely and/or remains remote throughout the first semester, will the virtual academy be recombined with hybrid classes or stay separate? As I mentioned earlier in today's presentation, if we are remote for a semester, then the Shaker Virtual Academy will no longer exist. All students will be remote. All students who have enrolled in the Virtual Academy will be essentially re-enrolled back into their home school and grade level. Again, as I mentioned earlier, also, if there's a need for a Virtual Academy later in the school year, that is something that we can certainly restart. Next question. I'm concerned about screen time in remote learning. Will my child be on a 6-hour Google Meet call? How will screen time be age appropriate? So we recognize that there is a concern around screen time. Children will not be on a 6-hour Google Meet or Zoom call, and we will ensure that screen time is age appropriate. Our teachers have gotten some experience with that in the spring and are also working to develop appropriate instruction and curriculum for a remote learning environment this upcoming year. As I mentioned, our goal is to keep students engaged. And while computers may be the method of delivery of instruction, we know that students will also have opportunities to work independently and in small groups and to continue to have ongoing connections and support with their teachers and other students in the class. Really, what I want to say is that this is not going to be a passive learning experience. It is going to be an active learning experience. Why are there no longer leveled classes in grades 5 through 12? And at the high school, will all students earn honors credit toward their GPAs? Is this change temporary for COVID-19? Great question. So we've talked about leveling a number of times in this forum, and I want to review a little bit about what we've talked about. So at grades 5 through 8, our schedule currently calls for students to take the same level class. 8th grade is a little bit different, but grades 5, 6, and 7, all students will be taking what in the past has been called enriched language arts and enriched mathematics. They will be taking classes that align with those standards in that curriculum. At the high school, we are working on consolidating core and honors level classes. Students will be getting or taking, the courses will align with the honors level curriculum. So at the high school, students will earn honors credit towards their GPAs. The reason for this change is twofold. First of all, As many of you have heard me talk about before, our system of tracking or leveling in Shaker Heights has really furthered or promoted institutional racist structures. Here, as many of you know, in our schools, we often have classes that are divided in terms of the skin color of our students, and leveling and tracking contributes quite a bit to that. We also know that the pandemic makes it more challenging to offer leveling classes because it's important to have smaller class size. In a remote learning environment, having smaller class size remains a priority because we know that it's going to be important for teachers to be able to connect with students, and a smaller class size will continue to let them do that. So is this change temporary for COVID-19? I can't yet fully answer that question, but I do know that it's important that we continue to institute and implement anti-racist structures in our schools, and detracking or de-leveling our classrooms is an important step in that area. All that said, I don't yet know what our schedule for next year or when this pandemic is over will fully look like. Can the district send homework packets, workbooks, or test books to each K-4 student? Typing, drawing, and coloring on a trackpad is frustrating, and being able to use pencil and paper would ease the process. This is something that we're discussing, figuring out how to get supplies and materials to students as they need. We've learned a lot since the spring, and we recognize that it's important that students and teachers have supplies available for the learning process. So this is something that we are working on. I don't yet have a full answer, but it is something that we are working on. Will the district offer remote music, including band, orchestra, and choir, art, and physical education instruction to students? We are currently planning to continue to offer specials. We are, of course, continuing to work on what that exactly will look like. But we know that one of the things that makes our Shaker schools so special and unique is the wide range of courses that students have the opportunity to take here. It's part of being an international baccalaureate district. So we do expect to continue offering these courses, but we don't yet know exactly what they will look like. Will non-athletic extracurricular activities still be offered? Absolutely, yes. I imagine that many of our extracurricular activities will need to be offered in a virtual setting. Whenever that's possible, we will be prepared to do so. But we also know it's really important for students to continue to have opportunities to engage and to build their interests and to participate in extracurricular activities. So we expect to continue to be able to offer those. My child is in the career and technical prep classes at Cleveland Heights University Heights. Will she still be able to take those classes? We are in regular communication with our partner districts who are a part of or who comprise our Career and Technical Education Consortium. In fact, I had a meeting with our districts and our CTE coordinator just a few days ago. We are still working on CTE courses for the upcoming school year. However, we all remain very committed to continuing to offer these courses. One of the things that we discussed is that for some of our CTE classes, an in-person component may be necessary. And that's something that we're working on with our partner districts and with our CTE program coordinator. More information should be coming soon, but we do expect to continue to offer our career and technical education courses this upcoming school year. And I believe this is our last question for today. There are rumors stating that classes will be virtual lessons on Comcast only. Is that true? If so, when will classes begin? This rumor is not true. We will not be offering virtual lessons on Comcast. We will be offering virtual remote lessons using some of the same tools that you became familiar with in the spring, including Google Meet, Google Classroom, Zoom, and other tools that allow students to engage in a virtual or remote learning environment. If so, when will classes begin? As I mentioned earlier, we are discussing with the board this evening the potential for our students starting on Monday, August 31st. That would be a change from our prior school year calendar, but that is what we're proposing or discussing with the board this evening. for students to start school on Monday, August 31st. So just some upcoming information. As I've mentioned earlier today, we are participating in a special meeting with our Board of Education that starts tonight at 5 o'clock. Our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Marla Robinson, and our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Jeff Grossi, will be talking with the board along with me about these plans for a remote start that will potentially last for the semester. Again, that's tonight at 5 o'clock. The next summer update will be this Friday, July 31st at 3 p.m. At that point, I expect to be able to provide our families with additional details about our plan for the start of the school year. There will not be a summer update Thursday. Instead, it will be taking place this Friday. And finally, we know that there have been questions that have been asked, and we have a frequently asked questions website that currently does not have any questions posted on it. We will be posting answers to those questions by Friday, July 31st, after the update on Friday. So I apologize for the delay and thank everybody for their patience. This concludes my update today. Thank you, everybody. As always, we appreciate your feedback, your input, and your questions, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day.